Natalie had been married to David for 10 years. They had 2 children, a beautiful house, and seemingly a happy life. But for months now, she had felt a growing sense of unease. David was always distant, and she suspected that he was having an affair. One day, Natalie decided to surprise David at his office. She knew he had been working late a lot lately, and she wanted to take him dinner and spend some quality time together. When she arrived, she was greeted by a sight that she would never forget. David was in his office with his mistress. The woman was naked, and David was laughing at her. Natalie was stunned. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. Her whole world had just been turned upside down. But instead of crying or shouting, Natalie felt a sudden sense of calm wash over her. She knew what she had to do. She quietly left the office and went home, where she started to pack her things. She knew that she couldn't stay married to a man who didn't respect her. The next day, David came home to find Natalie waiting for him. He was surprised to see her bags packed, but he didn't seem particularly concerned. "Where are you going?" he asked. Natalie looked at him calmly. "I'm leaving you," she said. "I can't be with a man who has no respect for me." David laughed. "Respect? You think I don't respect you? That's hilarious." Natalie didn't say anything. She simply picked up her bags and walked out the door. She had no idea what she was going to do, but she knew that she couldn't stay in that house with that man. Over the next few weeks, Natalie started to rebuild her life. She got a job, found a new place to live, and started to take care of herself. She discovered that she was stronger than she ever imagined. But David didn't give up easily. He called her constantly, sent her flowers, and begged her to come back to him. He even showed up at her office, trying to convince her to give him another chance. Natalie was tempted, but she knew that she couldn't go back to the way things were before. She had to move on with her life. One day, David showed up at her door, looking contrite. "I know I messed up," he said, "but I love you, and I want to make things right." Natalie looked at him for a moment. She could see that he was sincere, but she wasn't sure if she could ever trust him again. But then she remembered the image of him laughing at his naked mistress. That memory gave her the strength to do what she needed to do. "I'm sorry, David," she said, "but it's over. I can't be with you anymore." David looked crushed, but Natalie knew that she had made the right decision. She closed the door and started a new chapter in her life, one where she didn't have to worry about being betrayed by the person she loved most in the world. Years later, Natalie would look back on that moment with a sense of pride. She had been shocked when she caught her husband with his mistress at work, but she had emerged from that experience stronger and more confident than ever before. She had learned that she was capable of anything, even when faced with the most difficult challenges. As time went by, Natalie started to date again. She was hesitant at first, but she soon found that there were good men out there who treated her with the respect and love she deserved. She even started to think about the possibility of getting married again one day. One evening, Natalie received an unexpected phone call. It was David. She was surprised to hear from him after all these years. "Hey Natalie, how are you doing?" David asked. "I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?" Natalie replied, trying to sound polite. "I'm doing okay. Listen, Natalie, I wanted to call and apologize again for what I did. I know it's been a long time, but I feel like I need to say it again. I'm so sorry for hurting you and for not treating you the way you deserved to be treated." Natalie was taken aback by David's words. She hadn't heard from him in years, and she had thought that he had moved on with his life. "I appreciate the apology, David," Natalie said, "but I've moved on. I'm happy with my life now, and I don't think it's a good idea for us to reconnect." David sounded disappointed. "I understand, Natalie. I just wanted you to know that I regret what I did, and that I'm truly sorry for the pain I caused you." Natalie felt a small sense of satisfaction, knowing that David had finally realized the magnitude of his actions. She knew that she had made the right decision in leaving him all those years ago. "I appreciate the sentiment, David," Natalie said, "but it's time for both of us to move on. Take care." Natalie hung up the phone, and took a deep breath. She felt a sense of closure knowing that David had finally apologized for what he had done. But she also knew that she didn't need his apology to validate her strength and resilience. She had rebuilt her life after the devastation of catching her husband with his mistress, and she had come out stronger on the other side. Natalie smiled to herself as she thought about all the wonderful things she had accomplished since leaving David. She had a successful career, a loving family, and a sense of self-worth that she had never felt before. She knew that her journey had been difficult, but she was proud of herself for not giving up. As she settled into bed that night, Natalie felt a sense of peace wash over her. She knew that life would continue to have its challenges, but she also knew that she was capable of overcoming them. After all, she had already proven that to herself. The next day, Natalie decided to take the day off work and treat herself to a spa day. As she was getting a massage, she reflected on her life and how far she had come since the day she caught David with his mistress. She thought about how she had allowed herself to be treated poorly in the past and how she had let fear and insecurity control her decisions. But she also thought about how she had been able to break free from that cycle and start living life on her own terms. Natalie felt grateful for all the people who had supported her through the difficult times, including her family, friends, and therapist. She knew that she wouldn't have been able to make it through without their love and encouragement. As she walked out of the spa, feeling relaxed and refreshed, Natalie decided to stop by David's workplace to return some of his belongings that she had found in her closet. She wasn't sure why she felt the need to do this, but she knew that it would help her finally close that chapter of her life. When she arrived at the office building, Natalie was surprised to see that David's car was parked outside. She debated for a moment whether or not to go in, but her curiosity got the best of her. She walked through the lobby and headed up to David's floor. As she approached his office, she could hear his voice and the sound of laughter coming from inside. Her heart sank as she realized that he was with his colleagues, probably enjoying a joke or a funny story. But then she heard something that made her stop in her tracks. David's voice suddenly grew louder, and he started laughing hysterically. She could also hear a woman's voice, but it wasn't one of his colleagues. It was too high-pitched and too giggly. Natalie's heart started racing as she realized what was happening. She slowly pushed open the door to David's office and saw him sitting at his desk, with his back to her. And on his lap, facing away from her, was a young woman in a short skirt and a revealing top. David was laughing so hard that he didn't even notice Natalie's presence. But the woman saw her and quickly jumped off his lap, looking embarrassed and flustered. Natalie felt a sudden surge of anger and frustration as she looked at David, still laughing at the situation. But she also felt something else, something that she hadn't felt in a long time. She felt empowered. Without saying a word, Natalie walked over to David's desk and dumped his belongings on top of it. She then leaned down and whispered in his ear, "You never knew what your quiet wife was capable of, did you?" David's laughter died down as he turned around and saw Natalie standing there, with a look of fierce determination on her face. He opened his mouth to say something, but Natalie cut him off. "I don't need your apology, David. I don't need anything from you. I've moved on with my life, and I'm happier without you. But I wanted you to know that you don't get to laugh at women anymore. You don't get to treat people like they're disposable. You don't get to hurt anyone else the way you hurt me." With that, Natalie turned on her heel and walked out of the office, feeling a sense of satisfaction that she hadn't felt in a long time. She knew that David would never fully understand the pain he had caused her, but she also knew that she had finally stood up for herself and for all the women who had ever been in her shoes. As she walked down the hallway, feeling strong and empowered, Natalie realized that catching David with his mistress had been a turning point in her life. It had forced her to confront the reality of her situation and make a choice. And she had chosen to take control of her life and her happiness. Over the next few weeks, Natalie continued to focus on herself and her own healing. She spent time with her friends and family, went on solo trips, and took up new hobbies that she had always been interested in but never had the time or confidence to pursue. And as she started to rebuild her life, Natalie began to realize that she was capable of so much more than she had ever given herself credit for. She had spent so many years being held back by fear and self-doubt, but now she felt free to be whoever she wanted to be. One day, as Natalie was out for a walk in the park, she received a phone call from David. She hesitated for a moment before answering, but then decided to pick up. "Hi, David," she said, trying to keep her voice neutral. "Natalie, I just wanted to apologize for everything. I know I messed up, and I'm sorry. I hope we can still be friends," he said. Natalie took a deep breath and thought for a moment. She realized that she had already forgiven David, but that didn't mean she had to let him back into her life. "David, I appreciate your apology, but I don't think it's a good idea for us to be friends. I've moved on with my life, and I think it's best if we keep our distance," she said, firmly but kindly. David seemed to understand and said his goodbyes before hanging up. Natalie felt a sense of closure as she put her phone away and continued her walk. As she looked around at the trees and the sky, Natalie felt a sense of gratitude for everything that had happened. She knew that catching David with his mistress had been painful and traumatic, but it had also been the catalyst for her personal growth and transformation. And as she walked away, feeling stronger and more confident than ever, Natalie knew that she had finally found the courage to stand up for herself and live life on her own terms. From that day on, Natalie made a promise to herself to always prioritize her own happiness and well-being. She knew that it wouldn't be easy, but she was determined to never again let someone else dictate her life. With newfound confidence and self-assurance, Natalie threw herself into her work and personal life. She got a promotion at her job, started volunteering at a local charity, and even began dating again. Though her heart had been broken, she was determined to not let it hold her back. And as she looked back on her experience, Natalie realized that sometimes the most painful moments in life can be the catalyst for the greatest growth and transformation. Though it had been a difficult journey, she was grateful for everything she had learned about herself and the world around her. Natalie knew that she had come out of the experience stronger and wiser, and she was excited for all the possibilities that lay ahead. As she walked down the path of her new life, she knew that she would always carry the lessons she had learned with her, and that she would never again settle for anything less than she deserved. In the end, Natalie had come to the realization that her worth was not defined by anyone else, but by herself alone. She had found the strength and courage to create the life she wanted, and she knew that the future was filled with endless possibilities. And as she walked towards the horizon, her head held high and a smile on her face, Natalie knew that nothing could ever hold her back again. She was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, confident in the knowledge that she had the strength and resilience to overcome anything. Years passed by, and Natalie continued to thrive. She had built a successful career, formed deep and meaningful relationships with her friends and family, and even found love again. She had never been happier, and she knew that it was all because of the strength and resilience she had found within herself. One day, Natalie received an unexpected email from David. She hadn't heard from him in years, and she was surprised to see his name in her inbox. She hesitated for a moment before opening it, wondering what he could possibly have to say after all this time. To her surprise, the email was a heartfelt apology from David. He expressed deep regret for his actions and acknowledged the pain he had caused her. He thanked her for the strength and courage she had shown in the face of adversity and wished her all the best in her future endeavors. Natalie read the email with a sense of closure and peace. She realized that she had already forgiven David long ago, and that she didn't need his apology to move forward with her life. But she was grateful for the acknowledgement of his mistakes and for the chance to put the past behind her once and for all. With a deep sense of gratitude and closure, Natalie replied to the email with a brief note. She thanked David for his apology and wished him all the best in his future endeavors as well. And with that, she hit send, feeling a sense of closure and peace that she hadn't felt in years. As she reflected on the journey she had taken, Natalie realized that catching David with his mistress had been one of the most painful experiences of her life. But it had also been the catalyst for the greatest growth and transformation. It had taught her to never settle for anything less than she deserved, and to always prioritize her own happiness and well-being. Natalie knew that there would be more challenges and obstacles in the future, but she felt confident and strong in the knowledge that she had the resilience and strength to overcome anything that came her way. As she walked towards the future, her head held high and a smile on her face, Natalie knew that she was ready for whatever lay ahead. In the following months, David sent Natalie a few more emails, each expressing his remorse and regret for his actions. Natalie responded kindly to each one, but she also made it clear that she had moved on and was happy in her life without him. Eventually, the emails stopped coming, and Natalie knew that it was time to fully let go of her past with David. She continued to focus on her own growth and happiness, building a life that she was proud of and that brought her joy. Years turned into decades, and Natalie lived a full and rewarding life. She had achieved all of her goals and more, and had built a life filled with love, laughter, and purpose. One day, as she was sitting on her front porch watching the sunset, Natalie realized that the pain of catching David with his mistress had faded away into a distant memory. It no longer held any power over her, and she was grateful for the growth and transformation it had brought her. As she watched the sun dip below the horizon, Natalie realized that life was full of unexpected twists and turns, but it was also full of beauty, love, and endless possibilities. She knew that she had the strength and resilience to face whatever came her way, and she was grateful for the lessons she had learned along the way. And as the night fell and the stars began to twinkle overhead, Natalie smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace and contentment. She knew that her journey was far from over, but she was excited for all the adventures and possibilities that lay ahead.